Welcome to Behind the Scrubs Couch, where real stories, expert voices, trusted health conversations come together. Before we begin, please remember that this interview is for educational purposes only and does not replace professional medical advice. If you enjoy credible health content, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notification to African Health Excellence. Now grab a seat. The conversation starts now. Welcome back to Behind the Scrubs Couch, where we go beyond the white coat and discover the inspiring people behind their profession. I'm your host, Sylvia Maseko-Mhlanga, and today we are joined by an extraordinary woman whose work spans research, public health, higher education, pharmaceutical regulation, and autism advocacy. She is a registered biomedical technologist, researcher, lecturer, independent regulatory consultant, and the co-founder of Rich Resources NPC, an organization dedicated to supporting families affected by autism spectrum disorders through advocacy, awareness, and caregiver empowerment. Her passion for improving healthcare has earned her regional recognition, including a Positive Impact Award in 2025, and she is now proudly nominated for the 2026 African Health Excellence Awards. Rethabile, or as many in the autism advocacy community know you, Rita, welcome to Behind the Scrubs Couch. We are excited to get to know the incredible woman behind all these remarkable achievements. Thank you so much. All right, no, it's a pleasure. But Rita, before we get into your incredible journey, let's start with our famous Behind the Scrubs quick fire round. It's going to be very easy. You just choose one. Is that fine?
Okay. Okay.
Are you a coffee, tea, or hot chocolate person?
I'm a coffee person, but I do enjoy
Okay.
coffee with chocolate.
Oh, all right. Okay. Beach holiday or bush getaway?
Beach holiday.
Okay. Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
Okay. Books or podcasts?
Why does it have to be so difficult?
Can you imagine?
I love them both. But books.
But
Books
you must
is
choose one.
books is a daily for me. Daily. Books are a daily for me. Yeah, books.
Okay. And what's one food you could never live without? In your fridge, nje, whenever we come, whether it's the 1st, whether it's the 15th, the 30th, what's that one food item we will always find?
Milk.
Okay.
I love milk.
All right. And if your family had to describe you in one word, what would they say?
If my family would have to describe me, they would say happy. Happy. Bubbly.
Okay. All right. Nice. And what's one thing that instantly makes you smile?
My children.
That's sweet. And if you had one completely free day with no responsibilities, how would you spend it?
I would spend it sitting in the sun, probably writing, inspirational writing. I don't get to do that much. Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. That's great. And what's one hidden talent most people don't know you have?
I can actually sing.
Oh,
I can sing.
that's nice. Do you mind singing for us? Us in a few seconds.
What do you want me to sing?
Anything. It can be an R&B song, it can be a gospel song, anything that comes to mind.
Okay. If you don't help me, where else can I go? Nowhere, nowhere.
Wow! That's nice. Wow, that's so beautiful. It's a pity that some of us we love singing, but singing doesn't love us, you see. So I'm so excited whenever I see a person who can sing. But anyway, tell us about young Rethabile. What kind of child were you growing up?
Young Rethabile was very curious. I was curious. I was very naughty. Um, I loved to write even when I was very little. Um, I remember when I was in primary school, we were told to write what we had heard the teachers tell a story. And I wrote an entire book of that exact same story. It was so good, she thought I'd copied it from a book. So that was young Rethabile. She loved to write, she loved to read, I loved to play. I also loved to sew for my dolls. So I'm a creative, I think, through and through. Yeah.
Oh, oh, that's nice. And what first sparked your interest in science and healthcare?
What first sparked that interest was, I think it was in high school. Yes, it was in high school. So it was a career exhibition day, and somebody came to our little school and they spoke about biomedical sciences, and they were sharing a lot of other health topics. It was from a particular health college. So they were sharing about different professions, being a nurse or pharmacist. So I chose, funny enough, biomedical technology because I wanted to be a forensic scientist. I love to watch CSI, you see. So I always imagined I'd be the one who would help solve cases, murder cases, and yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow, interesting. And you've built a career across the research, regulation, education, and advocacy. Was this always the plan, or did life lead you there?
Um, I think it wasn't always the plan. I just wanted to become a forensic scientist, like I've said, but life brought those opportunities to me. And I am someone who really loves to make a difference, to do work that has impact. So I slowly moved from biomedical technology into pharmaceutical sciences because I wanted to do more. I got bored
Mm,
working in the laboratory and I needed more, stimulation. So I pursued,
mm,
a postgraduate qualification in pharmaceutical sciences. And then after that, I was home for a bit. Then I decided to do my master's. So that's where the opportunity in higher education came through. And my master's work was looking at counterfeit medicines and policies in South Africa. And that's how the rest of my space and regulation started. So it's always come from a place of striving to do more, striving to be more impactful, more relevant, and improving the quality of lives for others.
No, that's great. And you did a very interesting research there. And I'm wondering, do you think there is enough awareness about counterfeit medication, especially in the public? Because I can imagine that if a company tells me that, oh, there's this thing, maybe there's this drug for weight loss or whatever, whatever, and here are the results before and after. And obviously, our people don't know because at least with healthcare professionals, I feel like these companies obviously do not target healthcare professionals, though they do try.
Yeah.
If you are a healthcare professional that is not maybe inquisitive, where you'll want to know research papers and all that, you'll also fall into that trap and you'll end up, recommending something that is not well researched or something that is a counterfeit. Do you think maybe the industry is, making enough awareness about that, whether it's for the public or the healthcare professionals? Because, like we are saying, that as healthcare professionals, we are not the same.
So there are those who don't
Mm,
ask a lot of questions and will just take it.
yeah. So prior to 2025, the level of awareness was not great, and our regulator was not as visible as they are now. I was fortunate enough to have been part of a technical working group that looked at how to, make public awareness, how to increase public awareness. It's a working group I'm still part of by SAPRA and sponsored or in partnership with the World Health Organization. So there was a launch of a national action plan to combat counterfeit medicines or substandard medicines, and post that launch, we had action plans, obviously. So post that launch, we had a meeting about 3 weeks ago, and a lot of progress has been made in terms of SAPRA being more visible. They've had a lot of conversations on radio. They're on TikTok now. They've got a WhatsApp channel. They've been on a couple of radio stations. So more and more people are hearing from the regulator. I also get invited to some radio stations every now and again, and I do talk about that. So I think slowly we are getting there, because now we have a lot more, support, and we have a blueprint. This is how we're going to get people to know about this. Yeah. So things are a little bit better, but it has not stopped counterfeiters, to take advantage of the gaps in the legislation. But the national regulator is working very hard at closing those gaps, even amending the policy and the legislation as well.
Okay, no, that's great to know. And who has been the biggest influence on your life and career?
That's a hard one. I really don't have a role model. A lot of people have role models. I don't have a role model. I'm my own role model. Um,
Mm,
I am the girl that I thought I would be when I was younger, and even more. But I think if I'm going to be speaking about people that have really paved the way for me, it would have been my grandmother. My grandmother raised me most of my life, and she's been a really great, a great support for me, and someone who has taught me a lot of things about life. And now that I am an adult and I'm a mother and I'm a wife, I draw a lot from the things that she's taught me. Yeah, so that would be my
mm.
grandmother.
Oh, okay, all right. And what inspired you to co-found Rich Resources, the organization that you've co-founded?
So, Rich Resources was um, founded on my own personal journey, my own lived experience as a mother who has children that have been diagnosed with autism. And it rose from a need, as a healthcare professional. I was able to understand some of those really complicated medical terms, and I could read research articles and try and make sense of this new diagnosis that I was given. But it was still scary for me because I had no idea, how to parent a child that had autism. And I think in South Africa, there was not a lot of information around that. I drew a lot of information from subscribing to online newsletters, for
Mm,
resources. And I realized that even though I was going through a difficult time, but because of the knowledge that I had, and, the advantage that I had as someone who was going through this journey, I could help other people. So that's how Reach Resources was founded. It started as a WhatsApp group, reaching out to
mm,
parents I'd meet, when I go for my clinic days at Steve Biko Hospital, or, wherever I meet a parent who says, I've got a child on the spectrum. Sometimes it will just be me noticing the child on the spectrum because I have one, and I would approach the parent, and the parent would open up and would add them to the WhatsApp group. So I registered the company in 2020, but the work began in 2015, much earlier.
mm,
Yeah, so that that
mm,
that is the main reason why I started Reach Resources. I wanted to give people credible information, well-researched information, to offer them, emotional support, and inspiration to say, I am doing it and you can also do it. Yeah.
No, that's true. And working with families affected by autism can be deeply emotional. And I'm wondering, is there a moment that has stayed with you and continues to inspire the work that you do around autism?
In terms of my experiences with others or my own experiences.
Yes, yes, yeah, especially as you interacted with the mothers.
Sure, there's been a lot, but I think now I'm thinking about just one incident. There was a mom that I met through an online group where moms can get to speak about their challenges and pray together. And she befriended me, and we met for coffee, and I was able to help her get her child enrolled into an academic hospital, to see the therapists there and the professionals there, the consultants, and she later on gave me a testimony that her child is just grown from leaps and bounds from just being able to be put on medication, and she didn't know that there was medication available that can help to manage the symptoms. So that really felt very close to home. There's also another mom that I partnered with that I met on Instagram, who also has three autistic kids, and she ran a newspaper, a newsletter, like a digital magazine. And I said to her, I'm happy to provide you with, more of a scientific, research-based perspective. And I partnered with her, and she told me that a lot of people were returning to the news, letter or the magazine because of the content I shared. So those are moments that make me feel like I am making an impact, and my journey has a purpose.
No, that's true. And most of the time, Rita, when we talk about, children with different disorders, we always hear the mother. But as you are working with maybe, children in your organization with autism and all that, do you see quite a number of fathers, being involved, or the majority still in this space of autism? Because obviously there are different disorders and all that. But in your space, do you see a lot of fathers getting involved, or it's like the other conditions whereby it's always the mother, the mother? And why do you think it's like that?
It's very sad, that the narrative that you just spoke about is actually very true. There's few there's few people that I've met who are still with their spouses. And it doesn't matter whether they are from, the people of faith, or whether they're, just people living their lives. But husbands often leave, and spouses often leave families, their wives and their children on the spectrum. Mainly because men find it really difficult to accept a child that has autism, because children are a representation of, carrying on a family legacy. And so children that have a disability are often seen as, not useful for the future, I suppose. But also, I think it's also because women are more emotionally inclined, and we are able to talk about our experiences, and we always find other women to talk to. And men are not very, they're lone creatures. They're lone creatures. If they get together, they talk about everything else except for how they're feeling. So I'm finding that not being able to have a safe space where they can process that trauma, because it really is traumatic, and it's a process of grief, grieving through the experience until you're able to accept the child that you have. Men don't have that space. But I think it's a good thing. over the past 2 years or so, my spouse has also been part of another organization called Fathers with Children with, neurodiversity, and they have support from Professor Sifago at, I think it's Professor Sifoto at University of Johannesburg Center for Neurodiversity Studies. So he's formed this group of men, and he meets up with them often, and they have boot camps where they can really talk about their experience. So more and more, I think awareness needs to be raised around supporting men that have children on the spectrum. Yeah.
Okay, no, that's great then if you have such organizations because I believe that it's going to help more men deal with the situation instead of running away from their families because whether a child is autistic or whatever, they still need both parents involved in raising them up. But yeah. So, Rita, when you're not
Yeah.
working, what do you enjoy doing?
Over the years, I just enjoy lazing around. you know, Sitting outside
Mm,
in the sun, walking barefoot
yeah.
in the grass,
Mm, mm,
or taking out a friend for coffee, or just taking myself for
mm.
coffee.
Oh.
I have come to appreciate the importance of, balance, being
Mm,
present, practicing mindfulness, and just really allowing myself to just sit and not do anything. Because I'm a
mm,
high achiever, naturally, I am looking for the next high, you know.
mm, mm,
But I've also realized that my mental health is important, and I do not
mm,
have to prove myself to anyone else, that I'm
mm,
capable. So I'm learning to be more at home with myself. I'm learning to spend more time just doing nothing. And it's okay
mm,
to not have anything to do on your to do list,
mm,
especially if you're stretched like me. You're a mom, you're a wife, you're an academic, you're a researcher, you're a community member, you know. So, yeah, it's very important. Mental wellness is very important.
No, that's true. And what's one life lesson you wish you had learned much earlier?
One life lesson I wish I had learned much earlier, that life sometimes can be hard, you know. I was
Mm,
very
mm,
naive as a young person. Because I was so goal orientated, in my mind, I was going to do everything in record time, and my path was going
mm,
to be linear. So what I've
mm,
learned is that life is not linear. Life has a lot of
mm,
detours, and
mm,
what I need to learn is that I need to be able to adapt to my
mm,
situation
mm,
and to be able to focus on the things that I can do to change the narrative, and
mm,
that it's okay to not have it all figured out. But most
mm,
importantly, that you will be okay. Because I think
mm,
I really have struggled with just one, mishap after another over a couple of years. And I just never thought
mm,
I'd be okay. But here I am. So that is what I think I would tell myself, that no matter how
mm.
uncertain life can be, but you will be okay. You've got this. Your life is in God's plan, and you'll be fine. You know,
Mm,
yeah.
okay, that's great. And congratulations on your nomination for the 2026 African Health Excellence Award. How did you feel when you heard the news that someone somewhere out there decided to say, you know what, I see the work that Rita is doing. So how did you feel when you heard the news?
I was ecstatic. I was excited. I was excited. I think from winning some awards last year and being nominated, and again this year, I really am beginning to, to receive recognition, because I do a lot
Mm,
of things very selflessly without expecting someone to say, hey, you're doing great, or I'm expecting
mm,
anything in return. So it meant a
mm,
lot. I remember last year I was looking at the nominations, and I would also follow Dr. Ntokozo, online, and on LinkedIn. And I thought to myself, I want to be part of this,
Mm. I think
I love what she's doing.
God, yeah. Mm,
So I was
mm,
ecstatic. I was ecstatic.
mm, mm,
Yeah, I was ecstatic. I just said to myself, this year I want to be the one that wins that award. I'm gonna walk on that stage this
mm.
year, because I
Yes,
really
yes.
believe in what she's doing. Health professionals do a very selfless job, and rarely
Mm,
do we, get recognition for our impact. Yeah.
mm, no, that's true. And who can you say you dedicate this nomination to?
I'm dedicating this nomination to myself.
Mm,
I've
mm, mm,
dedicated every other nomination and every other award to others, but this one is for me.
mm, mm,
I
wow,
have done the work, and it is time for
mm,
me to receive the recognition that I deserve. Even if I do not
mm,
win the award, but the
mm,
recognition itself is important
mm,
validation to keep going,
mm.
to keep following my dreams and to keep making a difference wherever I am.
No, that's true. And I love that because, sometimes you shy away from, receiving and owning the nomination or the award as if there's anything wrong with that. Whereas, like you are saying, you are the one that is doing the job, and it is okay to, accept it. Because, like you are saying, being a healthcare professional is, a selfless job where obviously you do it out of a calling. And when there's someone that says, hey, I see you, I applaud you, it's a way for them to say thank you for, the work that you are doing and the impact that you are doing in the community. I really, really love that because I feel like sometimes maybe one of the things that makes other healthcare professionals maybe depressed and all that, it is because we are used to taking care of others such that we
Yeah,
forget about ourselves. Mm, mm,
absolutely. Absolutely
mm,
agree.
mm. Yeah. And why do you believe recognizing healthcare professionals is so important, especially for the public? Because I mean, this platform, it's whereby the public who are beneficiaries of whatever impact made by healthcare professionals, they are the ones that nominate their healthcare professional in whichever way that they've, encountered them. Sometimes it's colleagues as well who will say, no, I can see my colleague here is doing a wonderful job. So, but why do you believe maybe recognizing healthcare professionals is so important?
It's important because everyone needs encouragement. In the
Mm,
healthcare space, everything needs to be done correct the first time. So there is a
mm,
lot of pressure on excellence, a lot of pressure on quality, a lot of pressure on, outputs, um, you know, and you are expected to do this in a very high pressure environment where there's turnaround times, where everything that you do is always, being recorded, being monitored. I mean, unless you're in private practice, that might be different. But if you're still in a system, an ecosystem
mm,
like public health or even like a private laboratory, for example, when I was a biomedical technologist, I could not afford to make a mistake. Mistakes were just not an option, because one bad results affect someone else on the other end of the line. So it is
mm,
important to give as a recognition because it's encouragement to us that your
mm,
work matters. You know,
mm,
even though you are in many ways what you do in that kind of space, but you as an individual matter. The profession
mm,
matters, but your input in that profession matters.
mm, No, that's true. And what motivates you to continue serving communities despite the challenges that are in the health sector?
Because people are image bearers. We are made in the
Mm,
image of God. And for me, the work that I do, is far greater than a career choice I made. It's a calling for me, and because people are made in the image of God, people deserve dignity, they deserve respect, they deserve love, they deserve care. And as a healthcare professional, I can make that difference wherever I am. I can make someone feel like they are human, by giving them treatment that they otherwise would not have received out there, because they have a disability or they don't have money. So, healthcare, providing good quality healthcare crosses beyond, socioeconomic, conditions. It gives dignity to people. It gives people the right to life, you know. So yeah, that's my take on that.
Okay, all right. And what legacy do you hope to leave in healthcare and autism advocacy space?
I'm very big on justice. I'm very big on equality. I'm very big on equity. I'm very big on dignity. That's the legacy I want to bring, that everyone deserves dignity. Everyone deserves, to have access to clean water. Everybody deserves to have access to medication when they're unwell. Everybody deserves to, to have information. Children with autism have the right, to good quality education. They have the right to access healthcare. They have the right to access, social services. And those families have the right to be given support. We are no different than any other family, that lives here in South Africa. So whatever other people that are neurotypical have the right to, we also have the right to that access. And for as long as that inequality or, lack of equity exists, amongst us, based on socioeconomic status, based on whether you are disabled or you're not disabled, I will continue to fight, that battle. I will continue to be a voice of integrity. I'll continue to be a voice that, advocates for the rights of others.
Okay, no, that's interesting. Okay, now let's play one of our audience's favorite segments, fact or fiction. So you'll tell us whether this is true or false. The first question
Okay.
or the first statement is autism is caused by bad parenting. True or false?
False. Absolutely false. I'm a great parent.
I like that. And the second statement says vaccines cause autism. True or false?
False. Even the Bible says it is not this man's parents who sinned against him. So, no, false.
Absolutely false. Okay. People with autism don't want friends or relationships.
False. They just relate to the world differently.
How different, if I may ask?
So people with autism seem to be affected in the frontal cortex, the front part of the brain, which is also responsible for human interaction. And so they may not be able to express affection the way that, we, neurotypical individuals are used to. But if you get to be close to them and to watch them, I have kids, on the spectrum, on different levels of the spectrum. One is affectionate and one is not. But I have learned that even when they play next to each other, that is a display of affection. So it just looks different. Every child is different. Every person on the spectrum, adult or youth, are different. So that, display of affection can be very different for everyone.
And do you think that autism can affect marriage? Because obviously they are going to grow up to be adults and all that. Do you think it can affect maybe their marriage if you were, a child growing up with autism?
I think so too. Because there is that challenge, of being able to express affection, we all want to feel loved. And depending on how you are wired, if it's acts of service, if it's quality time, if it's touch, you may feel, affected if, love is not communicated to you the way that you receive love. There are many young, not a lot of young people, but locally, I only know one couple, and I've spoken to their mom as well. This young man has married her daughter, and they actually have to live with them because they do not have the emotional capacity to deal with the demands of what a mature relationship requires, from a spouse. So from time to time, the mother has to sit them down and help them process those very complex emotions. And if language is also a challenge, you can imagine not being able to say how you feel or what has happened in your day. That can increase that. However, it is possible for autistic individuals or individuals, that are on the spectrum to have, marriages and families, but with support. With support.
Okay, all right. No, I guess then it's important for us, as public, as families, to be very supportive. Okay, and then the next statement says only children can have autism.
No, I like the statement that says autistic children become autistic adults who become autistic children become autistic youth who become autistic adults. Autism doesn't go away. The challenges can be less or more improved with support, with early intervention, but remember that it's a neuro, developmental disorder. It's a multi-system disorder. It's a structural, condition that affects how the brain works, brain chemicals, that affects how the body responds to the brain, how the body, interacts with the environment. So some things will become less as the child matures and as the, nervous system becomes more regulated. But they will still have some of those basic challenges of connection, of being able to express themselves, of being able to manage time, to understand where they are in space. So often, adults with autism would probably continue to need, to have a therapist to speak to help them plan their day. And really, my dream, would be, to have that in an affordable manner right here in South Africa, where we have young people with autism that can go into mainstream education, that can be able to do university, because having autism is not a limitation of one's ability. Depending on where you are on the spectrum, there are those that are highly capable of going on to university and having degrees and working normal jobs. And then there's others that may not be able to do that but have other skills that we can harness. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And if you could place one message on a billboard for every healthcare professional in Africa to read, what would it say?
Your work matters.
Yeah, that's true and powerful. And if your younger self were watching this interview today, what advice would you give her?
My younger self, what advice would I give her? Pace yourself. Pace yourself. What is happening around you is not who you are. Your life experiences are not who you are. You are bigger than your circumstances. You are much more than that. That is what I would say to my younger self, that do not allow the things that happen to you and around you to define who you are. You are braver than you think. You are stronger than you think. And you're more capable, and than what you could ever imagine possible.
Okay. And what message would you like to leave with families caring for a loved one living with autism?
This is like an entire book. How much time do I have? There's a lot to say, man. Sure.
Mm,
I think the most important thing I would say is, having a diagnosis that is life limiting for any child, or any parent is a life changing situation. And it's okay to not be okay. That even as you grieve a lost one, you are also grieving the loss of a child you wish you had had, the child you had dreamed you would have, the child that you imagined you would have, boy or girl, and allow yourself to go through that process of grief. Counseling is very important. It's a luxury because counseling costs money, a lot of money these days to see a psychologist. But there's other, community members that can help. A pastor can help. A sister at the clinic can help. There are also a lot of organizations that offer free counseling services. You can pick up, a call and call SADAG, SADAG, and talk to a complete stranger. It doesn't matter, but seek support. You are experiencing very big, complicated emotions that are recurring because children with autism have very difficult behaviors, very difficult behaviors. And so it takes its emotional toll on parents. And there is absolutely no way you can be able to deal with that without support. And I always say, let's learn to grieve in healthy ways. Let's not become, dependent on buying a bottle of wine every other day because you're struggling to cope. Rather see a professional, be on medication that can help you cope with your anxiety and your mental challenges. Speak to someone, because then you don't want a case where now you're also addicted to a substance. You've got a child, that you need to take care of. So grieve in healthy ways and allow yourself to go through the whole process of grief. When you first hear it, the anger, the disappointment, the fear, eventually you will get to being able to accept the child that you now have. But it's okay to feel those ugly emotions, messy emotions. I always say autism is messy. It's a messy business. Parenting a child with autism is a messy business. So I always say my house is a workshop. Before you come to my house, you need to make an appointment because on that particular day, we could be working on something very important, but it's messy. So I have experienced that mess. It's gotten a lot less, but there are days when I also don't know what to do. I'm a health professional, but I've never experienced, you know, like for example, my second child is very aggressive. My firstborn is very calm, so I've never experienced an aggressive 8-year-old before. So it's a trial and error. Sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. But the most important thing, keep advocating for your children. It gets better with support, with more information. And I really wish family members could understand the strain that people that are raising children with a disability are going through. They make the situation worse, by not being present, by cutting themselves away from us, by always having these comments. Why is your child not like other kids? Your child needs more discipline.
Yeah.
Also the pressure, the cultural pressure that perhaps you didn't do something right. You need to see a traditional healer. You need to take the child through a rites of passage, cultural thing. It really just adds a lot of pressure where parents already feel that they're not enough. So that is what I would say. If it means cutting off some people from your life, do so. Do so,
Yeah,
so that
yeah,
you can keep
that's
your family
true.
together. Yeah.
That's true. And how can communities become more inclusive for children and adults living with autism?
It starts with education. If in our education system, when children learn life orientation or life skills from the lower grades, you can teach them about neurodiversity, that people are different. They come in different forms and shapes, and everybody
Mm,
deserves dignity, love, and respect. If we can
mm,
start that conversation in the lower grades, that would be helpful. My daughter
Mm,
is 11, and she's such an advocate. She tells everybody about her brothers that they're amazing, they're intelligent, they do this, they do that, but they have autism. you know,
mm,
she shares a lot
mm,
about them in school when she has to talk about her family. But imagine if every other child was
mm,
empowered through the education system to have that
mm,
understanding. How much more inclusive would our communities be, you know?
yeah.
With adults,
Mm,
it's really difficult to change the mindset of a grown up. But if we start early, we would have much more inclusive communities.
mm, no, that's true. And what are some early signs that parents should look out for? Because sometimes you may find that either a child is diagnosed by the teachers, the neighbors, by TikTok, and then they don't know whether the child is autistic or not. So, but what are some early signs that parents? Because I think sometimes, especially with the African culture, we may not take it serious that this is a condition, it needs medication, it needs consultation maybe with a doctor or whatever healthcare professional that can be able to assist the child. So, what are some early signs that parents should look out for in their children?
Autism is a spectrum, as I've already indicated, so it would present itself differently in everyone. But there are those, characteristics according to the DSM. I think I don't remember where we are now, whether it's DSM. I think it's five DSM, five now, which is a list of the most common symptoms that can be associated with a condition. So with autism, it's language. Language is a
Mm,
big, big, big one. If your child is not, making, syllables, babbling, learning how to vocalize, and by two, your child should be able to say mama. I mean, my niece can say mama, already, and she's one. So between the
mm,
ages of 1 and 2, a child should have been able to pick up some words, you know, of any language
mm,
that they are familiar with. So, if language
mm,
is a challenge and the child is also struggling with emotional regulation, very difficult to calm them down. They're crying for no reason, they take off their clothes a lot because also individuals with autism have challenges with their nervous system regulating temperature. They don't want to have clothes
mm,
on, they're always taking their clothes off, like what's wrong with this child? This child is always walking around naked, walking on
mm,
tippy toes is also a sign that the nervous system is dysregulated. Walking on toes, spinning, because they do that to
mm,
regulate themselves in space. They spin around a
mm.
lot, but they never fall. They spin and spin and spin
Mm.
and spin and spin,
Oh, okay. Mm,
It's like a special talent. Another one also that a lot of parents struggle with is potty training. Potty training.
mm,
By six, by
mm,
seven, the child still doesn't understand potty training. It's worked for your other children, it's worked for your nieces and nephews, but your child is struggling 6, 7, 8, some are up till the age of 12, 11, 13, really
yeah,
struggling to sit on the
mm,
toilet
mm,
and do what needs to be done for a number of
mm,
reasons. Many of them are really scared of the toilet. The sound the water makes really scares them. Some it's
mm,
also, a sensory thing where they don't feel the need to go. So those are the things
mm,
that you can, be on the lookout about. Also, some really don't like affection. My firstborn doesn't like to be touched and kissed. My second
mm,
one is very affectionate. But what's common is
mm,
just not wanting to play with other kids. You are there with them, but you're doing your own thing. And also repetitive
mm,
play. They play with things differently, like they like to line things up. That's a very big sign. Everything, whether it's
mm,
toys, they're lining them up. Spoons, they're lining them up. Stones, they're lining them up. Odd
okay.
behaviors like tearing paper. My house is full of paper because my youngest regulates by tearing paper. The whole house will be
Mm,
full of
mm,
torn paper. So
oh, yeah.
behaviors that you're not used to as a as a typical adult, what you've typically seen in your family or around your friends. Delay in
Mm,
understanding. When you call their name, they don't respond. When you talk to them,
mm,
eye contact is also a big one. They don't have eye contact. They don't look at you.
Oh,
They don't seem to
oh,
understand that you are speaking to them.
mm,
You know, that's also a
mm,
big
mm.
one. Yeah.
Okay,
Sleeping
wow.
also is
Sure.
a
I
big
also,
one. Sleeping also is a big. I told you it's a
oh,
book.
you did warn me.
They don't sleep at night also. So my goodness, they don't sleep. They struggle
Oh,
to sleep. Yeah, they're very hyperactive
mm.
mostly. Yeah.
Oh, well, I also learned a lot, Shem. I learned a lot. But anyway, your time flies when you're having fun. But
Yeah.
yeah, where can people connect with you and learn more about the work of Rich Resources?
People can connect with me on Instagram and Facebook. I've got a page. It's at reach REACH ot AUTSA at reach ot SA. That is my
Okay.
social handle for the autism work that I
Okay.
do. Well, apart from that, they can look for Rethabile Moshoeshoe-Molapisane on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Rita, thank you so much for joining us on Behind the Scraps Couch. Your story is a reminder that true impact often happens quietly through service, compassion, education, and advocacy. Congratulations once again on your nomination for the 2026 African Health Excellence Awards. And thank you for the incredible work you continue to do in advancing healthcare and supporting families affected by autism. And to everyone watching, thank you for being part of another meaningful conversation. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode. And join us next time on Behind the Scrubs Couch, where we celebrate the people behind the profession while correcting health misinformation one conversation at a time. Thank you so, so much, Rita. Have a blessed day.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.